Discord? Do I have Discord going? No, that would be too easy. Give me a second. More than a second. Of course, I had to restart the computer, so everything is not turned on yet. But I should be streaming okay. Hey! I was just starting Discord to tell you that I was starting. Ugh. I turned my hair into the 90s. It's not quite working though. I thought I cannot handle one-on-one human interaction today, but maybe I can handle reading a story on the internet. And it's been a while, and I feel like I should get back into it, you know? What's up? I'm glad you got home safe and we're not dead in the ditch. That's, like, fairly important to me. I would say middling. So, I can't really recap, but well, you guys know what my week's been like. A lot going on. Everyone has been notified, so no hurry. It's spontaneous and stupid as usual. So, I've been on Bumble, and I can't think of anything to say back. Just like, what are you into? Oh, outdoors, adventures outdoors, hiking. Okay, that sounds awesome. I'm not well. Do you like movies? And like, yep, like movies. No, that's too broad. Come on, man. The girls met up and went to the graveyard, that's right. The girls who are in love with each other, I believe. They're not giving me a great deal to work with, is basically what I'm saying. I don't mind it, it's just that, like, it doesn't give me a lot to talk about right now. Sorry? Okay, so I found the graves of the Fear Girls. And so on and so forth. But, okay, we got to the end of the description. Hey Josh, I'm shit, I'm not hydrating. I'm not hydrating at all. Alright, I found some water. We're good. Thank you. Yeah, I was really sick. Those iron tablets. So my doctor said, like, my iron is the only thing they measure to see if you can get free iron and shit is fine, like the low side of fine, but all my other measurements are like, So technically there's iron in my body, it's just not going to where it should be and it's not being used or whatever, so I'm just happy that there's a reason that I'm tired and out of breath all the time. You know? Pretty good. I think there might also be vampirism at play, but we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. And yeah, I've been on Bumble and I do not know what to say. It's like, hi, how are you? What are your interests? What else is there? I mean, I want to ask stuff like, hey, what happened to you that made you in your 30s and on this app? Like, I'll tell you. I'll straight up tell you. You can read it on my Twitter account. But, like, what happened to you that made you in your 30s and on this app? But it's kind of rude. Hopefully they can iron it out. Boo. Press FE to pay respects. Iron, get it? But yeah, talking to strangers online is weird, no matter how you do it. I could, but then from my YouTube they get to my Twitter and that's like cheating, you know? It's not fair if they're inside my head. I mean, I could. But then you guys would get censored content, so it just wouldn't be fair. Like, you're my real friends. But anyway, gonna do different voices for the girls, Hayley and Jenna, which I remembered all by myself. And you guys can absolutely tell me which voices you want to hear for them and for Simon and Angelica. Like, they've just come into the country, to stay with their friends in New Orleans, I think, somewhere. No, Shadyside. They've come to Shadyside, which is, I forget where. And Hayley has told Jenny, the Fear Street legend, the Fear legend, that the two girls died violently, one of them killed the other, and they found their grave, and they're both very, very spooked by this. And then Jenna realizes the inscription says, Hannah and Julia Fear, beloved daughters, they are not dead. And she flips out because she doesn't understand that it's a pretty normal thing to put on a tombstone. Don't sit beside my grave and cry. I am not dead. I did not die. Don't stand around my room and weep. For I got high. I did not sleep. It's a little nod to that song about getting high and not doing the shit you're meant to. I am not dead. I just got high. Dracula and Peter Capaldi. Sounds about right. Fear Street Sagas. Daughters of Silence.
What did you say?
Hayley's eyes opened wide. The whites of her eyes gleamed in the dimness.
Look for yourself, Jenna urged. It's right fucking there. They are not dead, Hayley read.
The girls stood staring at each other for a moment, wondering why their voices had both changed. Jenna wanted to say something sensible, but her throat felt dry and choked with fear in a new accent. A deep, eerie sound broke the silence. It sounded to Jenna like someone moaning. The mournful noise seemed to echo from all directions at once. Hayley gasped. She clutched Jenna's arm so hard it hurt.
What was that? Haley whispered. That's fucking owl, I think. Jenna whispered back. Haley tugged at her arm. Let's get out of here. The breeze wafted through the trees. Branches tossed back and forth. Dark shadows leapt across the front of the mausoleum. I made John watch Dark Shadows, like 2 episodes of it. He was like, "Yep, that's a show, alright." Choked with fear or fire. This hairdo isn't working. Not working for me. It looks fine, but it's not working for me. The breeze wafted through the trees, dark shadows, etc. Jenna leant forward as she saw something dark spattered across the lower part of the inscription. Oh my god, what could it be? Jenna let her breath out in a huge sigh. Ah, look, Haley. Some fucking mud or dirt's hiding some of the words. I don't want to know anymore, Haley hissed. Nonsense. There's always a fucking sensible explanation for these things, Jenna insisted. Just wait one more fucking minute. Jenna reached out to touch the inscription. Ow. It's stuck in my hair. The dark substance crumpled beneath her fingertips, leaving grit on her skin. Don't touch it, Haley cried. Ah, Haley, it's only dirt, Jenna told her. Which you may not have caught, but I said dirt. Oh, Haley heaved a sigh. I thought it was blood or something. Jenna smiled at her friend. You really are a fucking twat. Now let's see what this really says. It says twit. She scraped at the crusted dirt with her thumbnail. It flaked away easily, leaving the inscription bare. Sexy. They are not dead, she read, running her finger along the carved letters because she had to. They live eternally in our hearts. Haley giggled. That started Jenna laughing too, and soon they were gasping for breath. Can you believe we were such chickens? Haley asked. Jenna had to take several breaths before she could answer. They are not dead, she repeated in a hollow, spooky tone. Haley burst into another fit of giggling. Jenna started laughing again too. She laughed so hard she felt her sides ache and tears well up in the corner of her eyes. That's very rude to do in a graveyard. Oh, that was good, Haley gasped. You should have seen the look on your face, Jenna. The look on my face, Jenna gasped. You looked pale as a... Don't say it, Haley gasped. If I start laughing again, I don't think I'll be able to stop. Twit Twat is the new Twit Twat would be a great social platform, yeah. Unofficially kind of is. There's a fairy tale called Twit Twat Turf, which is about turfs being... I can't really describe it anymore because the stream might get taken down. It is the middle of the night, quite right. Hi Jessie, nice to see you. Sorry I've been away, I've been sick. You know how it is. If I start laughing again, I don't think I'll be able to stop. Yeah, me neither. Jenna looked up at the angel. She suddenly felt her mirth drain away, replaced by a frigid chill. The statue's gaze seemed fixed upon her, its claw-like hands ready to stretch out and snatch her up. Jenna took a because it's a fucking ugly angel statue, it's really bad. Jenna took a stumbling step backward, away from the mausoleum. Time to go, she thought. She looked over at Haley. Her friend stood in front of the door. Her hand rested on the ornate, wrought-iron door latch. Hey, it's unlocked, Haley exclaimed, her voice quivering with excitement. Let's go in. Jenna wiped her damp hands on her gown. Sudden dread gripped her stomach with cold, clammy fingers. And there! Why not? It's a grave, Hallie. All the better, Haley shot her look. Unless you want to admit there's a reason to be afraid. Jenna lifted her chin defiantly. Of course not. Can't. Then let's go. Haley turned the latch and gave the door a push. It swung open soundlessly. Jenna blinked in surprise. She'd expected the hinges to squeak from disuse. Strange. Oh yeah, and there's a dumb legend that the Fair girls were buried without their bones. Like, all their bones were missing. They were just like people jellyfish. Who knows? Thank you, Jessie. I am feeling better than I was, definitely. She peered over Haley's shoulder. Dark shadows filled the crypt, as opposed to light ones, shifting and swirling like thick black smoke, as opposed to white smoke, which does exist. Jenna coughed as she breathed in the musty, damp air. It smelled stale, unpleasant. Her stomach lurched uneasily as she caught another scent, a sickly sweet, rotten odour. Yeah, Jelly Girl sounds pretty good compared to Eric and Don Jr. Be careful what you joke about, because sometimes things kind of stick in your head. My hair always looks untidy. Got too little frizzly. Anyway. Jenna's heart pounded double time, and she was not yawning. She did not want to go in there. Here is a candle to light you to bed. Here is a chopper to chop off your head, Haley said, ending after the first candle, reaching up to a tiny shelf just inside the door. And I've got matches right here in my pocket. One match. Two matches. Thank you. You do too. I can't see you, I'm assuming. Haley struck the match on the marble doorframe, and Jenna blinked against the flare of light. Holding the candle, Haley stepped into the mausoleum. Jenna wasn't about it to let her friend go in alone. Still, her feet felt suddenly glued to her place outside. Don't be a silly twat, she told herself firmly. Could be either. Haley? She called. Her friend did not answer. Jenna peered into the shadows and spotted the flickering light of Haley's small candle. The breeze swirled against her back. The smell of decay grew stronger. She coughed and covered her mouth with her hand. An odd feeling tugged at her awareness. She felt as if someone were calling to her, but not with words. She had a sudden urge to look up. She didn't want to, but that odd feeling nagged at her, tipping her head back before she could stop herself. Jenna gazed up. Her breath went in, but it didn't go out again. Far. Instead, it stayed there, hot and hurting, while her heart tried to beat its way right out of her chest. The angel was watching her. Its eyes had no irises, no pupils, and more importantly, it was made of stone, but it saw her. Jenna could feel its menacing stare. For a moment, she thought she heard the sound of ruffling feathers, then saw those marble wings quiver ever so slightly, about to take flight, about to swoop down and snatch her up. Hot and hurting, oh no, yeah. With a gasp, she turned to run. Jenna! Haley cried as she rushed out of the mausoleum. Jenna ignored her. All she wanted to do was run and run and run and never look back. But Haley soon caught up with her, grabbed her by the arm and dragged her to a stop. What is wrong with you? Haley demanded. What happened? Too frightened to speak, Jenna pointed at the angel. To her astonishment, its eyes were closed. Okay, if you carved an angel and the eyes had no pupils or irises, I'd probably say that the eyes were closed the whole time. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. Haley frowned. What about the angel? Fucking looked at me. That's impossible, Hayley said. It looked at me, Jenna insisted. Its eyes were open and it looked at me. Hayley stared at her as if she'd lost her mind. Yenna, it's a statue. It can't open its eyes. I think I'm going to call it Yenna, because it's funnier. Jenna shook her head. She couldn't believe this. It had seemed so real, so terribly real. I suppose not, she muttered. But I was so sure. You're letting your imagination run away with you, Hayley told her. Sudden mischief sparkled in her eyes. Now this is a first. Sensible Yenna, getting so spooked that you thought a marble angel opened its eyes and looked at you. Its eyes were open before, I swear it, Jenna insisted. Big, bulging, fuck-off eyes, she added with a sudden shiver. Didn't you notice before? No, I guess I didn't, Hayley replied. And I guess I didn't notice that it was ready to fly down from its perch and get you, Hayley cried, swooping at Jenna with her arms outstretched like wings. Jenna laughed and fended Hayley off. She felt glad that the other girl's silliness had chased away her heart-stopping terror. Come on, let's see the inside of the mausoleum, and then we'll go, Hayley suggested. Then, when people in town start their wild fear stories, we can tell them how we walked straight into that crypt and came out again. Jenna tried to ignore the shudder that raced up her spine. She'd let her imagination run away with her once. She wasn't going to let it happen again. Gritting her teeth, she forced herself to look up at the angel. Its eyes remained closed. It didn't look back at her. Of course. It was a statue, after all. Only a statue. She took it. If this were Dark Shadows, there would be like a shaky pan to a statue that would not be in focus, and they would just wait for the camera to focus, and then they'd play dun dun dun. I love that show. It's so fucking stupid. She took a deep breath and followed Hayley into the crypt, feeling only the faintest twitch of dread as she walked under the angel. Hayley's candle sent yellow light dancing around the room. The walls, floor, and even the single bench in the centre were carved from black marble. Ooh. The soft sound of their breathing bounced back at them from the stone. Where are they? Hayley whispered, stopping just inside the door. Jenna could see that 2 bronze squares had been set in the far wall of the crypt to mark the resting place of the Fear Girls. Dampness had turned the metal blue-green. These fucking plaques say something, she replied as curiosity overtook her misgivings. She took the candle from Hayley and raised it high as she walked closer to the plaques. The smell of decayed flowers grew stronger. Finally, she could see the lettering. And I have to hit next page because it's time for the next page. Julia Fear, Hannah Fear. No surprises there. The names had been etched deeply into the bronze, as though someone had wanted to make sure they'd never disappear. Poor girls, Jenna thought. They'd been so young. That terrible story about them couldn't be true. I wonder what really happened to you, she murmured. Poor fucking Hannah. Poor fucking Julia. Some impulse made her lay her palm on the plaque marking Julia's grave. She hadn't planned to do that, but the urge had been too strong to ignore, and she'd moved before she realized what she was doing. The metal felt warm. Warm as her own skin. Strange when the rest of the crypt felt so chilly and damp. It's almost definitely a good idea. Startled by a faint rustling sound behind her, Jenna whirled around. A tall, thin figure filled the doorway, dressed all in white. Shadows hid its face. As it took a slow, single step forward, the breeze billowed in the fabric of its long, flowing gown. Who the fuck could this be? Jenna's legs went numb. Unaware, Hayley stood unmoving. Behind her, the apparition seemed to float on the wind. Hayley! Jenna whispered. What is it now? The other girl impatiently replied. Jenna opened her mouth to speak, but all that came out was a strangled, choking sound. She raised her trembling hand and pointed. Behind you, she croaked. Haley stared at her for a moment, then turned. Jenna saw the candle drop from her hand. The light sputtered out, plunging the vault into total darkness. Jenna heard her friend's deep, rasping gasp, then an ear-splitting scream. Ah! End of chapter 2. We did it. We did it. We did one chapter. I'm counting every chapter as its own personal victory. Then they died RIP. Chapter 3. How dare you? The apparition growled in the pitch-black gloom. Let's see if this works. Silhouetted by the moonlight, Jenna watched breathlessly as the apparition slowly raised long, bony arms, its claw-like hands stretching out from the shadows to grab her. Jenna squeezed her eyes shut and clung to Haley's trembling body. The angel, she thought, I desecrated the graves it protected, and now it's come for me. Look at me, the apparition demanded. Jenna slowly opened her eyes. In the silvery moonglow, Jenna could see the phantom pointing directly at her. A wild gust of wind swept into the crypt, and the apparition's long, unbound hair swirled around its head. She stared at the long skeletal finger, expecting lightning to stab out and burn her to ash. Haley clung to her and whimpered. Oh, Dracula frightened. She pressed her face against Jenna's arm. What are you doing in here? The apparition demanded. I'm seeing if it works. It might not work. Jenna picked up her head and tried to speak, but each time she looked directly at the looming figure, her body convulsed with a violent chill. She fought against the sensation, tried to shake it off. No use. Can you shake off shaking? Does that just give you 2 shakings? Jenna glanced up at the mysterious figure, and her teeth chattered in her mouth. Bone-penetrating cold pierced her body with 1,000 icy needles. She hugged herself and dropped to the floor, crouched in a cramped, shivering ball. Beside her, Haley looked as if she felt the same. I asked you a question, Highlander, the raspy voice shrieked, echoing off the stone walls. Wicked, wicked girls. We just wanted to see, Jenna managed to mumble. How dare you? The ghostly figure screamed. How dare you disturb my daughter's resting place? I'm kind of getting it, but I think doing the Sue White voice as well is not working. My daughters? This was no apparition, no sinister avenging angel, Jenna realised. Only one person could be standing in that doorway. Angelica Fear. She's gotta shake it off. Jenna dared to peer at Angelica Fear. Do you dare to peer at Angelica Fear? She's here. She quickly scuttled to her feet, and she reached down and pulled Haley up. Oh no, they were in big trouble now. That's what it says. Jenna glanced at Haley, but the other girl just stood with her hand over her mouth and her eyes round with fear. Obviously, Jenna would have to handle any explanations. I can't have them talking to each other, that's too weird. Ma'am, she whispered, Mrs. Fear. What am I gonna do? Light your candle, the woman ordered. I want to see your faces, you vile little fucking vandals. I want to look into the eyes of the girls who would desecrate the graves of my darling daughters. Jenna bent and grabbed the candle off the floor. Quickly, Haley scrabbled in her pocket for a match, then relit the flame. Jenna's hand shook just a little as she turned toward Mrs. Fear, but the woman's face remained in shadow. We didn't mean any disrespect, Mum, Jenna assured her. We didn't damage anything. We were only curious. Curious? Angelica asked. About what? Who's in here? Bloody dead bodies. What the fuck did you think you'd find? Fucking hell. Jenna felt her cheeks grow hot with embarrassment. We heard some stories. Oh, yeah, Angelica groaned. I've heard the awful things they say about me daughters. Me poor girls, she sniffed. Nobody knows how they suffered. She sighed. How they still suffer, she whispered, covering her eyes with a thin, pale hand. Silence settled over the crypt. Jenna didn't dare speak. She could hear only Angelica Fear's sighs and Haley's quick, shallow breaths. Suddenly, Angelica Fear dropped her hand and pinned Jenna with a penetrating stare. And who the fuck are yous? She demanded in an icy tone. I'm Jenna Hansen. This is my friend Haley Sheridan. Taking a deep breath, she went on. Haley's family just moved to Shadyside, and I came to spend the summer with them. We're best friends. Actually, we're as close as sisters. Don't kill me, you mad bitch. Angelica stepped into the crypt, and Jenna finally got a good look at her. Her black hair shimmered with the iridescent sheen of a raven's feathers. A thick lock of white hair, startling in contrast, caught the candlelight in a silver gleam. Her cheekbones were high and sharp, her cheeks hollow. Below swooping black brows, hard green eyes glittered like emeralds. Jenna thought she was very beautiful. But something about her looks struck Jenna as peculiar, unsettling. Like the face of a woman who had witched her beloved into the wheels of a paddle boat, churning him up and owning him in possibly the funniest death sequence in the entire Fear dynasty, though Jenna had no way of knowing this. She just knew. No, Angelica always had black hair, but her plain daughter Julia had black hair, and her bubbly, beautiful daughter Hannah had blonde hair. But yeah, Angelica always described as having black hair until she had all white hair at the end. R.I.P. Paddleboy. There were a lot of funny ways people got killed, but that was one of the funniest. Oh, sisters, Angelica mused. Oh, yeah. Jenna waited for her to say something else, but she didn't. The silence stretched uncomfortably. There's no good excuse for us trespassing, Mrs. Fear, Jenna said. All we can do is fucking apologise and promise never, ever, ever cross our fucking hearts and swear to fucking die, never do it again. Angelica's eyelids drifted closed for a moment. Then she opened them, her gaze boring straight into Jenna. Jenna told herself that they were ordinary eyes, belonging to an ordinary woman. But here, in her daughter's crypt, Angelica's eyes looked like hard, clear glass, and as violent and cruel as a green-tinged tornado sky. I don't know if that's a thing. Yeah, it's really easy to confuse them. I only remember Angelica's hair colour because when I was little I wanted my hair to be black. And so it came to pass. Several times. Now it's back to normal. Yeah. Oh, and then she blinked and the violence and cruelty vanished as though it had never been. Jenna wondered if she'd even seen it at all. Yeah, alright, apologies accepted, Angelica quietly replied. But now that I've found you here, you gotta fucking stay and talk for a bit. You gotta tell me a bit more about yourselves, Jenna and Haley. I'm sorry, Mrs. Fear, but I don't think we can, Haley spluttered. Yeah, you can. You gotta. At Angelica's sharp interruption, every muscle in Jenna's body tensed into a hard knot. There are a lot of Fears, and a lot of Goods. They all have different hair colours, except for the ones who have the same. Bit like life, really. Jenna barely drew a breath as she watched Angelica push a strand of jet black hair off her face. Heavy jewels on her thin fingers flashed in the candlelight. Spill the tea, little girl. You see, I come here when I feel lonely, Angelica softly murmured.
It comforts me to visit with my daughters. Far out, I nearly said sisters. What a weird slip on the part of the person talking for me.
Ma'am, Jenna began.
Anyway, those fucking stories they tell about me girls, Angelica continued, as though Jenna had not spoken at all. They're not true, yous girls. Oi, yous girls, they're not true. You must not believe them, she insisted, with a sharp shake of her head. Once the rumours got started, there was nothing we could do to fucking stop them. Perhaps it's the name. Fear tends to create a certain response in people. Suppose it's natural. Should have called ourselves big-ass sexy tits. Then people would like us, probably. Her raspy voice trailed off.
She gazed at the far wall, looking lost in thought. Jenna wondered if she'd forgotten them. Maybe they could sneak out. She glanced at Haley over her shoulder. Let's get out of here, she mouthed silently. Haley nodded, and they started edging toward the door. Then Angelica pinned them with a hard stare. All the vagueness in her eyes vanished like smoke. Meeting that gaze was like being pierced with a sharp stick. Or really any object. A sharp bit of metal. A sharp needle. A blunt stick, but the other end was sharpened and they used the other end to poke you. Piss off. The bird's been eating some bickies I put out there. Jenna felt frozen in her tracks. Still watching them, Angelica Fear strolled to the plaque marking Hannah's grave. Her fingers looked so pale to Jenna that they seemed almost translucent as she laid them on the bronze. Maybe a knitting needle. Ah, nice. Nice, Danny. A sharp stick. Much like a knitting needle.
They said such bloody terrible things about me girls, she murmured. How could anyone think that one of me girls could have killed the other? My girls loved each other. I tried not to listen to these monstrous stories. I tried not to hear. Fucked up.
Angelica dropped her hand to her side. The wind swirled into the crypt. The candle flame danced and flickered. For a moment, Angelica Fear's eyes looked as deep and black as the night sky. Jenna's skin crawled with a sudden, powerful dread. Come on, Jenna, pick up on something you've been feeling. Ever. Then the breeze died, and the light settled to a steady glow. Angelica glanced warmly at Jenna.
Far out, I'm glad you girls came here tonight after all, she confided. The rumours were started by a really lazy Stein. It's been so long since Julia and Hannah had visitors their own age. I'm sure they enjoyed it.
Jenna's mouth dropped open. What a strange thing to say. It's not strange. Grow up. Get away, she thought. Now, get away from this woman as fast as you can. Losing her daughters has driven her mad. Yep, thank you, Jenna muttered, giving Haley a nudge toward the door. We'd better get going. Haley's parents are surely wondering where we are.
Yeah, hold up,
Angelica called. Reluctantly, Jenna turned. Angelica stood in deep shadows now. Jenna could only see the ghostly gleam of her white clothing.
You should come visit me at home sometime, she said. We get fucking lonely, Simon and I. No one seems to be brave enough to call on the Fears. You girls, however, seem to have more courage than most. Please come. It'd be so nice to have two girls around the house again. I do miss the laughter.
Yep. Good night, Mrs. Fear, Jenna mumbled in answer. She tugged at Haley's arm and pulled her toward the doorway. Once outside, they started running. Finally, Jenna ran until her breathing rasped and her pulse beat like a hammer in her ears. She didn't look behind her until she passed the cemetery gates. Then she dared a single glance over her shoulder to make sure only Haley was following her.
Stop, Haley panted, grabbing Jenna's arm. I can't run any more. I've seen some poppy seeds on the ground, and I must count them all before dawn.
It's a real vampire legend, by the way. That's why the Count Von Count is called that on Sesame Street. Vampires have this thing. You spill rice or
grains of sand or salt in front of them, they have to count every single grain, and often the sun will come up. The vampire will get caught. Don't know if anyone's tried that recently, but it's true. Like, you can look it up. It's completely true. I don't know if the Count von Count was explicitly based on that, but I think he must have been. Jenna allowed herself to be pulled to a stop. She propped her hands on her knees and gasped for breath. "Can you believe this?" "No," Jenna replied. "What a strange woman." And that is possibly the end of the chapter. Yep. That was the end of the chapter. A strange man. So, nothing bad has happened to the girls yet. Sort of. But they have drawn the attention of Angelica Fear, who wants them to come visit. And I hope nothing bad happens. What a strange woman. I wish the Sean Connery voice had panned out for Angelica, but it just didn't. Excuse me. Strange man. Shops closed, everybody out. Exactly. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for putting up with my long absence and everything. And I hope you enjoyed today's reading, and I will be back tomorrow, probably. Oh, I'm hanging out for treatment. Holy shit. But yeah, thank you guys very, very much for being here. And, yeah. Glad to see you too. I'm up for voices out, but not voices in. But tomorrow, after treatment, I'll be fine. I will still have pretty bad body image issues, but you know what? They're not going away. Thank you for reminding me about the water, Josh. Thank you for saying remember to like the video, Danny. Thank you for thanking me, everyone. Have a good night. And if you can't have a good night, have a clever one. See what I did? Ending the stream now.